The Berlin Airlift, the 40s. During the Big Three conferences with Stalin, Roosevelt, and Churchill, they decided how to break up Germany after the war. There was East Germany, controlled by the Soviets, and the Allied zones of France, England, and the USA together formed West Germany. The capital, Berlin, was split into four parts also, and the Soviets ended up closing the roads to Berlin so the Allied countries flew in supplies to the citizens of West Berlin. These supplies included much needed medical supplies, coal, food, and clothes. Over the course of the airlift, over 2.3 million tons of supplies were delivered. They had to fly over East Germany, which proved to be a dangerous task for the soldiers because although no bullets had been fired yet, no one was sure about how the Soviets would react. As stated by an anonymous Royal Air Force pilot, it was dangerous work and we had no guns, only flour. This was really the mentality of the soldiers during the Berlin airlift because they were not sure who was going to fire the first shot of the Cold War. Here are some examples of Berlin airlift planes and how much they carried. The Halifax, 6 tons. The Viking, 3 tons. RAF Coder, 3 tons. The Civil Tudor, 8 tons. And finally McGrosser Tudor, which carried 10 tons. Once landing in Berlin, the planes had to move quickly because there was only 90-second windows in between each arrival and departure. The supplies had to be unloaded 24/7 to make sure that the people of West Berlin would have food on the table every night. Project MK Ultra, 50s. One of the most inhumane projects ever carried out was by our very own CIA. It used LSD or acid to attempt to look through people's heads in faraway places like the Soviet Union. It was tested on participants that did not know they were being tested and therefore suffered effects for the rest of their lives.
I felt I didn't have any control, or I had to answer. I didn't feel I had any control. I was completely, like they had complete control over me.
The government used the new and untested chemical LSD to control unknowing participants. Doctors would switch out patients' medication and give them LSD, then later test them while they were on an acid trip to get answers. This is what an acid trip would look like if it would be filmed. If you did not know that you were going on an acid trip, this would be very scary to start having hallucinations and being questioned, all while being controlled by someone that you did not know. If this experiment succeeded, the government was fully ready to use it on the Soviets.
Before the Berlin Wall, citizens of East Berlin could flee into West Berlin to escape communism and reconnect with family and friends. The Soviets were getting mad that this was occurring and started to block entryways into West Berlin with barbed wire. This was later upgraded to a cement wall with landmines on each side. The US was angry and wanted to take action, but after seeing the Soviet army protecting the wall, they decided it was best to have a wall and not a war. This wall separated Communist East Berlin and Democratic West Berlin for more than 28 years.
The Korean War, 70s.
The Korean War was a war between North and South Korea. In 1950, North Korea invaded South Korea with the Soviets' assistance, causing the United Nations, with the United States as a head participant, and the People's Republic of China to side with South Korea. The war lasted 3 years, with a total number of 36,914 casualties, 33,652 occurring in the battle, and 3,262 deaths in war zones due to illness or other reasons. Today, North Korea and South Korea are still split into two countries. The demilitarized zone is a strip of land separating North Korea and South Korea. It is 160 miles long and 2 miles wide. This was created to prevent fighting between the two countries along the border. A meeting point between the two countries can be found near the western end, called the Joint Security Area. If you look up images of the Joint Security Area, you'll most likely find soldiers from North Korea and South Korea standing along the border facing each other.
The fall of the Berlin Wall, 80s. The fall of the Berlin Wall allowed East German citizens to finally get to the West where opportunities lied that they were oppressed from for 30 years. People went to the wall with their picks and hammers and climbed and tore the wall down that night because finally they were allowed to cross into the prosperous West Germany. Germany reunited, 90s.
The reunification of Germany was when East Germany and West Germany reunited after 45 years. This occurred shortly after the Berlin Wall was destroyed. The United States, Great Britain, France, the USSR, and East and West German officials sat down together to make this happen. Helmut Kohl was elected to be the Chancellor of Germany after the reunification.
Expulsion of Russian diplomats, 2000s. Over 20 countries are removing Russian diplomats from their systems because of the killing of British double agent Sergei Skripal and his daughter Yulia. They were reportedly poisoned, and the Kremlin says they know nothing about it, yet they sentenced Sergei to 13 years in prison.